Good morning.
Morning.
How's everyone doing today? So we missed it in the announcements, but actually Wednesday night we're also starting with a special video from True Mother, Hak Jahan Moon, and we invite you all to come out for that special message for all of our brothers and sisters. But yeah, I'm just glad to be here today. Glad to be alive, glad to be here with all of you. Last night, actually I went out to Mr. Bay's Seonghwa, his funeral service, his wake, right? Actually, beautiful brother. He was 99 years old this year. He was, I don't know if you remember him, he was this Korean grandfather, very old gentleman, but always smiling. Even he came to our English service and had no idea what was going on, and he would just smile at me. And I just loved his spirit, and he passed on this week, and he started his new adventure, his new life. But it serves as a reminder to me about how precious our life is, right? How precious the time we have is. And I saw in the testimonies and in the tears that people were shedding when in the conversations I was having, how much he affected other people's lives, how much joy he brought to them. You know, it was even said he wasn't a very well-educated man, but he did a lot in his life, and he brought so much joy to other people. He lived his life to the fullest. And it just serves as a reminder to me about how am I making my mark in this life? What am I doing in this life? You know, life is fleeting. Life comes and goes. It's as a breath. And not to be morbid, but it is, you know. And we should appreciate life, and that's what today is about. And I'm going to talk about fear in a little bit different way today, because I see it as an opportunity, a signal of if we're really living life. You know, on the way home, actually, from Mr. Bay's funeral, it was really interesting. I was listening to the radio, and I was flipping through stations, and I heard this girl talking about cozy homes. And she was talking about cozy homes and what that really means, and that it means a small house. And then they announced who was sharing this. They said, this is a reporter from the Wall Street Journal, Sanette Tanaka. And I thought, wow, that's so awesome. I just heard her on the radio. And she kept talking, hi, Miss Tanaka. There's a proud mama. You know, it was so cool to me. And she just kept talking, and I was like, I turned away up and I was listening. So I found out cozy is not a term you should be looking for when you're looking for a new home. Most of the time it's a negative. So I'm avoiding cozy homes now. But it was nice to hear her and to know that she's following her dreams. You know, that she's living boldly. She's out in New York City, you know, moved out from the Midwest and is following something that she has a passion for. You know, her job is really interesting because I hear the stories. She travels around the country visiting these different homes. And her first job was actually going to Maya Angelou's house, you know, and interviewing her. I don't know I think most of you know her. She's a very famous African-American poet, if you don't know who she is. But I thought that was so cool, you know, and how much courage though also it must take to go in there. And she sat down with her and interviewed her and said she was just an awesome person. But, you know, she's living her dream. She's following something. And I'm sure sometimes it's scary. I'm sure she's had a lot of fear going out there and traveling. But there she is. She's courageous and bold. And so to me, that was like kind of two reminders. You know, seeing the transition of a great man and his legacy, and also seeing how someone's living out their life right now today. And this is the kind of faith that we need to have, the kind of life that we want to live, right? So fear. We all know what fear is, right? Fear is that time when your heart is racing, when you're going to a job interview, or as my wife saw the other day, a meet and greet that was actually a job interview. You know, and you don't know what to say, you don't know if you have the right answers. You know, Fear is that feeling you have when you get a call from the doctor. You don't know what he's going to say. You know, you start clamming up, you get scared, you get nervous, your heart starts beating. Fear is that feeling many of you parents are feeling right now as your kids just graduated high school and you're going to let them go and they're going to go make their life and you don't know where they're going to go and you're hoping they're going to turn out well and gosh, they're moving out of state. You know, what's going to happen to my little boy? Of course, they're not little boys anymore. They're not little ladies. You know, they're men and women. But we're fearful because their life is changing, right? And we don't know where they're going to go. Fear is that feeling when, although you've been waiting to have a child for many years, suddenly you find out you are pregnant and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to my life? I know that feeling. It's scary. But fear is this signal that we get, this response to something changing in our life, where we can't control anymore, where it goes out of our hands. You know, we spend so much of our time in our life trying to secure everything, trying to tie up all the loose ends, trying to make sure that we're safe and protected, that nothing's going to infiltrate our little bubble. And fear is that feeling when we realize we're no longer in control. There's something else happening. There's other things happening in this world. And faith is our response to that fear. That we have that courage that although we don't know the next step, that we're gonna go boldly into this new world. It's like Martin Luther King said. He said, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. You know? This is how our life is, that we feel called to this new mission. We feel called to this new idea, this new concept for our life. And we don't know where it's going to lead us. We don't know where we're headed. We don't know what's coming up for us. But we step out in faith knowing that God is going to fill in the rest. That He's going to lead us on this journey. But fear is that natural response to something unknown. Fear is our way of saying, I love my life. I love this gift God gave me. And I don't want to lose it. I love what I've secured in my life. And I don't want to lose it. I love my children. And I don't want to lose them. You know, and so we get these feelings of fear. But what is life if we never face these fears? If we never look these fears in the eyes and challenge them and go out into that unknown and go and strive to reach something that we've never seen before, that we've never felt before. And I know for most of you, almost all of you, that you're all risk takers. That you have at least once in your life boldly stepped into the unknown. Even many of the couples here we know have arranged marriages. I mean, wow. Stepping into the unknown. You know, crazy. So I know that this isn't an issue for most of you, right? You're very brave people. But sometimes we get a little nervous, we get a little scared, and we retreat back a little bit. Father said, it's in my last page. If you think something is right, set it in motion unconditionally and carry it out boldly. Heaven will surely work with you. So if you think what you're doing is right, if you think that you have a worthy cause, let it go. And let God come in and guide you on that next step. Let Him show you that staircase and guide you on that next step. You know, it's really interesting because when we're young, it's easy to be fearless, right? When you look at little kids, they're running up and down, you know, climbing trees, jumping out of trees. I remember at the Ashland Church, the favorite pastime for our elementary kids was to see how high they could jump from the stairs, right? This terrified a lot of parents. But these kids would just run up and say, look how high I can jump. And then they jump, right? And they just go. You know? Or put a little red cape on a 4-year-old boy. See how far they can go. Now they're fearless. They can go anywhere. They can do anything. I remember when I was growing up, we used to go down to the St. Croix River a lot. It's at the border of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And we'd go up there to go cliff jumping. So they've got these big cliffs out there, and people would flock out there to go jumping off these cliffs. And they ranged anywhere from like 15 to 25 feet. And, or 75 feet, not 25, 75 feet. And we'd go out there, and it was so cool. You know, these high cliffs jumping into the deep water. And so people would come out there, and I just remember it was so exciting when you could finally muster up the courage to just jump off that cliff. But that was the thing, you had to first muster up that courage. You know, you'd sit there and you'd be psyching yourself up. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then you'd run. And you just freeze. Say, oh my God, I just almost jumped off a cliff. It's scary, right? So scary. And you do that like 3 or 4 times. Keep telling yourself, I can do this, I can do this. But you would just freeze at that last step. And you knew how exciting it'll be once you jump off that. Once you let yourself go. Once you trust, you'll be okay. And it's so exhilarating, it's such a rush you get. And it was so fun. And once you got the courage and you did it, you'd just run right back up and do it again. Once you got your feet wet, you know, you'd be excited to do it again. But I remember it was so funny because we would go up there. And there's all these teens and young adults up there, all these guys. And, you know, we're all flexing and showing how cool and tough we are. And we'd be standing up there. We'd be talking about jumping off. Yeah, I'm going to jump off. You know, oh yeah. And we thought we were so cool. And then, you know, as we were all standing there kind of talking about what we're about to do, and I'm definitely going to do it. You know, we were standing there talking, and there'd always be like this little 8-year-old kid. I remember really clearly this one 8-year-old girl that just ran up and said, "Are you guys jumping?" We're all like, "Yeah," and she just ran right out and just jumped and leaped. Like it was nothing. I was like, oh my gosh. And then we all felt like a bunch of wimps, a bunch of sissies. You know, but that always happened, you know, these little kids. No fear. They trust so much. They know that someone's going to look after them. What about in our lives? Do we trust that someone bigger than us is looking after us? That if we jump, if we go out in that unknown, if we take that first step, that God will watch over us, that something will protect us? And that's how these little kids were, and it was so cool to see. But of course, in life, we grow up, and we get used to our safety and security. And we get used to protecting ourselves. I was thinking about the American dream the other day. I was thinking about the American dream has always been to go out boldly into this world and try something brand new, right? To start a new business or, you know, make whatever you want of your life. But my feeling is actually that this maybe is changing. I don't know if it's because of the recession that's been going on or what it is. But I don't hear commercials about living boldly and courageously. I hear commercials about insurance and securities. I hear things about, you know, where you can safely invest your money. How you can protect your life. Everything in life is geared towards how we protect ourselves. Even I watched a movie the other day, and there was this young couple. Well, they weren't together yet. They were on their ways to it. But everybody in their life was kind of going after them. Because these two were pursuing their dreams. They were, you know, one was an artist, and one wanted to do stuff at a zoo. And to a lot of people around them, they said, when are you going to grow up? When are you going to make that safe and secure world, that bubble, for your family to grow up in? And I think this is how a lot of us are, that we're so scared, we're so nervous, that we want to protect our family. We want to protect what we have. And rightfully so, you know. We love those people. We love our families. We love the security it brings. But what if that security is limiting us and limiting God from living out this dream that we've all had. You know, like this song earlier, marching to the blessed land of Canaan, right? You know, trusting on the fire and the clouds to guide us, you know, not knowing where we're going. And we sing that so much, and we lived that lifestyle where we didn't know where we were going, but we knew God had a vision for us. And so we jumped boldly in. We jumped boldly in. The longer you get used to your life, though, the harder it gets to live out in faith again, though. You know, it's like when you've jumped off that cliff, and if you don't get right back up there and jump again, if you wait and you start thinking about it again, you start weighing out the pros and cons, you know, you get nervous and you stop trusting anymore. And in life that happens many times. We weigh out the options. But it's like how Jesus referred to the wide road and the narrow road. You know, one road leads to this eternal bliss, this absolute joy. But it's not easy, it's scary to go that way. He says in Matthew 7:13-14, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads us to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Now when I read this verse, I was thinking about, you know, you've got this safe, big road, you know, like American roads. If you've been in other countries, you know that American roads are like, you know, 3 times the size of any other road. I was driving around the mountainsides in Switzerland, and you're expected to get 2 cars down these roads. God, it's the scariest thing. You know, but here, you know, we're looking at a wide road, this huge road. Actually, the shoulder of our roads are like the size of roads in other countries. It's crazy. Because we want this safe and secure road with plenty of room to maneuver, to make mistakes, you know. But then he says, narrow is the road, you know, and few will find it. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about like these mountains in the Himalayas with these rope bridges, right? I was imagining these bridges in my mind, and how getting to that temple, getting to that beautiful spot where you can just come into oneness with God, when you can just get away from this world to get that perfect view. You've got to travel on these little tiny rope bridges, you know, and you're swaying back and forth. And that's what I felt like this verse was saying to me today, was that it's a little bit scary to follow God's will. It's a little bit scary to go out in faith. But the reward, oh, the reward, right? So amazing. So when something is new, though, something new is presented to us, a new idea, a new concept, even a new opportunity in our life, you know, something new we can embark on, some new job opens up, you know, or like I said earlier, a new baby comes along. How do we usually act? When something is new, we respond in fear, you know. We're scared. We don't know the unknown. We can no longer control this situation. We no longer have power over it. You know? We don't know how we're going to pay our bills if we go out that way. You know, we don't know how we're going to secure the future if we try that. If we go to our hometown, we don't know how we're going to make our life there. And this reminded me, I go back to the lifestyle many of us have lived for many years. And I think back 8 years ago to the bold life I lived, to how much I lived on faith, that I didn't know what my next day would look like. But I went out every day. I was doing mission work out in Europe. I was in this beautiful town, Nitra, Slovakia, for like 5 months, and I was witnessing out there. I was trying to bring people into our community. And I just remember this is one of like the highest points of my life. I loved being out there. Yeah, I loved going out and meeting people and talking to them about God, about giving them some direction for their life, about talking them through their life difficulties. And I enjoyed that so much. I had so much fun doing it. But I remember every single morning, I'd get out on that street, and I'd have to say this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And I'd walk up to someone. I said, I'm going to go and talk to that person. I'm going to invite them to come with me. I can do this, I can do this. And then I'd just kind of turn over. Oh my gosh, I almost approached that person. What might they have said, right? What could have happened to me? And I would get so scared, and this would happen 3-4 times before I'd finally get the courage again. And I'd finally go up to someone, and it was so exhilarating. Just to see who people are, to hear what they think, to hear about their lives. And then to invite them to something that transformed my life, and to share that with them. And that was so exciting to me. And so once I got the courage, it was so exciting again. And it's been a long time, I'll tell you. A long time since I lived that boldly. Where I just kind of threw away everything and I just went for it. But that was so exhilarating. That was such a precious point in my life. And I hope, that I'm maybe right now, I've been spending the last couple of years saying, I can do this, I can do this. What can I do, right? If I live out boldly, if I take that first step. I even remember my first time out there when I gave a lecture, when I gave testimony. We brought in countless people, but we always had a pastor there that would teach them. He would talk it through with them. But we were studying that we could do the same thing. So one day after probably about a month out there studying and preparing, me and my buddy said, hey, let's do this. The first person you talk to today, you'll give a lecture to. First person I talk to, I'll give a lecture to. And we agreed upon it, and so we were stuck with it, right? So we were walking through, and early on in the day, he found someone. We brought him upstairs, we talked with him for a while. We shared about his life, and then my buddy gave his first introduction lecture. Introduced him to the church. And it went well, and we were happy, we were excited. I was glad it wasn't me. And then we went back out on the road, and we started witnessing, and throughout the day, and I figured, it's almost time to go home, because I'm off the hook today. And so we kept talking. I met one more person now. He was riding on his bike, and I thought, I'll talk to one more person, then we'll go home. And I figured he's on his bike, he'll just ride on by. So, excuse me. I started talking to this guy. He was wearing a jacket with a hood and some glasses, and started talking with him, and he said, sure, yeah, I'd love to come by. And I thought, okay. And he said, well, I'm going to go grab dinner first, and I'll come right back. I said, okay, fine, I'll be up there. So we went up there and we waited, and I thought, well, maybe I'm still off the hook, because a lot of times people, when they say they're going to come back, they never do. And so we're sitting there waiting, and then he calls, and he says, hey, actually, I've got 2 friends I want to bring with. Is that okay? Okay, all right. And then they call again and say, we have one more person. So 4 people now. 4 people. Okay. Well, I said I'm going to do this, so I got to do this. And they came up. They came upstairs, and they walked in. And he wasn't wearing a jacket anymore, and I could see his face. I realized this guy was probably 45, 50 years old. I thought he was like 25 or 30 on the road, riding his bike. And the people he was with, they were married. They had kids older than me. I thought, oh my gosh. So we talked though, and we shared, and we had just a remarkable time. And we talked for about an hour first, and then they said, okay, well, show us what you were going to show us. And so I talked to them, and I gave them my presentation, and we sat down, we talked for about another hour after. It was a great experience. But if I wouldn't have been bold enough to promise that I would talk that day, if I wouldn't have been bold enough to go talk to one more person, I would have missed this incredible opportunity that I had. And it was such a joy to me. It was such a joy living in that kind of environment. And that's what happens when we live in love, when we have this love for other people. I had a passion to share what God had done in my life. My love for God was my motivating force, which powered me through, that led me into unpredictable situations, places I would have never gone. You know, but my love for God, and because of my love for God, my love for people, because I desired that their lives could be as rich as mine, that they could have that same joy. And so, you know, because of that love, that fear washed away. It's like in 1 John 4:18, it says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. So when we understand that God has this divine love for us, this absolute love for us as His parent, that punishment isn't the reason we're being driven to new heights, to new opportunities, but because God wants to see us become our full selves. He wants to grab life by the horns and live that bold life and to take on these new opportunities. So there's no fear in love, but it's driven out by that love of the divine and that love for other people. Like a mother who will jump in the way, you know, to save her children. You know, that perfect love. That care you have for a friend where you'll take on a burden with them. Because you don't have fear, you have love for them. And that's the kind of life we're looking at. And that's the goal, that's the ideal. That's what we're striving for. But how do we often react to something new? Something fresh? Something unexpected? We react often in fear. Right? We close up. And we get scared about it. You have 3 typical responses to fear. Right? When something new comes up, many times people, they fight, right? They flight, they flee, or they freeze. You know? So the first one, to run, to flee away from the situation. You know, it's like it's like when we come to tax season, right? And we keep putting off doing our taxes. We know we have to do them. We know we're supposed to do them. But April 15th is still 2 weeks away. It's still 1 week away. And we're running away, we're avoiding this, right? Or when we get into a messy relationship, right? When we hurt someone, and then we just start running away from them. We run away from the problem. We avoid it because we're afraid of giving forgiveness or being forgiven. We're afraid that we could ever really repair the damage done. Or in a family of 6 boys, when a vase was broken in the house. It looked like a nice day to go outside. And we ran away. Especially if my mom started yelling in German. We were far away from the house. And we ran away from the problem. You know, and we blamed all 5 other brothers. That was great. Everybody pointed their fingers at someone else. Another option is to fight, right? We get a bad report at work. You know, something doesn't go well. And we get angry. And we decide to place the blame on someone. We start fighting. Even fighting people that have no responsibility for it. Even coming home and fighting with our wife because of what's happening at work. Because this fear builds up with us and we don't know how to deal with that emotion. And so we start fighting people. Or something again changes in church and we don't know what to do or who to blame. Why is this happening in my community? You know? And we fight it. We fight each other. The other option is freeze, right? And I already shared that a few times. It's I can do this, you know, and we freeze again, and we stop. And we disconnect from a relationship. Instead of pursuing our wife, because there's a problem in the relationship, we just stop connecting. We stop talking. You know, we freeze, and we stop. So these are some ways that people respond to it. But what if we had the faith in the midst of those fears? What if we took a second to think about the situation and how we could overcome it, how we, with God, could overcome it? Recently, I was reading an article, and it was talking about overcoming fear, facing our fears. And there, he gave a few ideas, and so I wanted to share these with you about how we can face our fears. First of all, he said, besides dealing with them, he said, we have to remember that we're transpersonal, which is another word for spiritual beings, he said. He said in his circle, people use the word transpersonal. I thought that was interesting. But spiritual, that we have this connectedness, that there's something beyond our physical body. And so although we have these fears, although we're scared of losing our life, that we remind ourselves that there's something bigger in our life, right? There's something more to us than flesh and bone. But he gave these pointers. He said, when you do feel that anxiousness, when your heart starts to beat a little faster, when you start to sweat and get anxious, he said, first thing you want to do is go out for a walk or take 10 deep breaths in. Just calm yourself. So you recognize that you're having that fear. Identify that it is fear. That it's not just anger at someone else. It's not just jealousy. It's fear. That we're scared of the change. We're scared of what we have to do. We're scared of making that extra effort, taking on that new responsibility. Or of losing that person. So identify that as a fear. And then the second thing he said, after you take that break, after you've taken time to digest it, is then to identify what the emotion is and what triggered it. So like, I'm scared right now because I don't have the money in my account to pay my mortgage. I don't know how to tell my wife that we might lose the house, that we might have to move. And to identify that. And once we can identify that and identify the trigger, we can start to deal with the problem. We can start to actually deal with the issue at hand. And I thought this is so interesting, that we just slow down and identify the problem. And then we're less likely to exacerbate or to amplify or make the problem worse, right? Because when we fight, when we freeze, when we run away, what does that do for these obstacles, these problems? What does that do for this kingdom of heaven we're trying to build? We actually multiply the problems when we run away from them, when we try and fight them. So we want to identify them and realize that this fear is a signal that I do cherish my life. But then understand how we can overcome it. And in that kind of faith, in that kind of... this last year, actually, we've had a lot of things that scared us, right? I think so. For me, a lot of things kind of worried me. Last September, Reverend Moon, True Father, passed away, right? You remember how you felt then? Wondering what was going to happen in this church? What was going to happen to your family? Wondering where you fit in all this. Wondering how you can keep going. Wondering what your life's work has been all about. We have this fear, right? We had all these leadership changes 3 times in a row, right? What's going to happen next? And this fear keeps plaguing us. But as a body, I'm really impressed because we face these head on. And we went through it together. And we were courageous in the midst of fear. And this has been our life course. We've been trained to face our fears head on. To be bigger than our fears. And in this step of faith, in this moment of faith, when we go out and boldly take on these things, a new dawn is birthed. And right now we're standing in a critical time, in a new era, right? Where we must take our fate into our own hands. And this to me is like when you turn 18. Such a great feeling. I remember when I turned 18. I thought the world was my oyster. I could do whatever I wanted. Everything was open. I ran out and I bought a lottery ticket. And I lost $5. But I was so excited about all the new opportunities. I could do whatever I wanted. I could rent a place if I wanted. I could buy a car. I could start a business. I could do whatever I wanted. I'm 18. And I was so excited for this new freedom and to be able to do whatever I wanted. But then I started realizing I have no idea how to do any of these things. I've never done them before. And I started freaking out. Started thinking about all the new responsibility. Finally, I have this freedom, but all this responsibility comes with it. And I've got to make the decisions now. I've got to figure out how I'm going to live my life. I have to answer for the mistakes that I make. And it scared me. And I think this is what we're facing right now in our church, where we've been given this huge opportunity. No longer is a time when we're going to be told everything to do, how to do it, where to be, how much money to give, what our mission is, how we're supposed to do it. Actually, now is this new opportunity where the canvas is wide open. And True Mother is saying, go out and do what you feel passionate about. Take that spark of Father that's in your heart and live it out. And live boldly. And it's exciting, but it's scary. It's so scary at the same time. So we need to choose our response, though, to that fear. When we feel that nervousness about not knowing where we're going, about not knowing what's next, about all those new responsibilities, will we turn away and walk away from the opportunity that's presented to us because of the seeming insurmountable responsibilities, because of the new challenges, because of, that we can't see the staircase? We don't know what's next, so we freeze? Or will we be charged with a new energy to go out and live a new life, to be part of that new energy that God is calling for us to be a part of that time? This is a new era, and things will not be looking the same as they used to. We've actually grown quite comfortable. Even the seats we're sitting in today, right? Oh yeah. I see a couple eyes closing. We're quite comfortable, right? Our life is comfortable. People are taking care of us. We've got this great band. The great thing about this is the sound is loud enough that no one hears my voice anymore. And so I have no fear. I can belt it out. I'm very comfortable now. I don't have to worry about throwing everyone in my row off key. So it's exciting, right? We're very comfortable. Our lives are safe and secure. And we've worked hard to get to this point, to make this stability. But God doesn't want us to be comfortable, unfortunately, brothers and sisters. And I think most of you didn't sign up for this to be comfortable, right? You wanted to be challenged. You wanted to be part of something new. You wanted to be part of building a new world, a new community, a new way of doing life, a new way of building families. You were excited that God was calling you to do something your parents never dreamed of. And you could make your own way in this world. I have a feeling that all of you are risk takers, and given the chance, you'll look that fear in the eye and say, my God is bigger than you. I can take this on. I will face that fear because I know God wants me to be there. And that's where I'll feel alive. That's where I'll know that I'm alive. Many people go through their life avoiding all these fears, protecting their life. It's like Jesus said, though, those who work to save their life, they lose their life. We're so focused on preserving our own little world, our own little life, that we never really live anything. That we save all this money. For what? For what purpose? But God is calling us to live out our life, to trust in God, that God's going to provide that God's going to work through you. if you just take that step in boldness and in faith that God is after us. Here we are with Mother encouraging us now to make our neighborhoods our tribes, to step out of our daily routine, invite people into our homes. I don't know about you, but my home needs to be cleaned up whenever we invite someone over. Gosh. Little babies, oh man, they're like tornadoes. Everywhere she goes. Maria knows, she babysits a lot for Morella. Oh my gosh. You know, you have to clean the house, you have to prepare the house. And do I know enough? Can I share something with this neighbor? How are they going to think of me? We're so scared. But Mother's calling us to live boldly in this way, to go out and reach these people. Even here in our church, right? We're being encouraged to take local ownership, to take boldly these new initiatives, to figure out what we're going to do, what we want, you know. Yesterday, even we had our first local council meeting, and I thank everyone that ran. We have incredible brothers and sisters in our community. A lot of people that didn't run that I know are incredible brothers and sisters. There's so much talent. There's so much awesomeness in this community. It's the only way I can say it, just awesomeness. Each one of us has a special spark that God wants to use, that He wants to do something great with. And now is the time for local ownership to let that light shine. To say, hey, this is what I can do. I don't know if you can use it, but I'm going to offer it. You know? And this is that kind of boldness we need to have. That faith in the midst of our fears. Even our relationship with headquarters has changed, right? They look at themselves as more of a support group. How can they help our local initiatives? And it's kind of weird. Because we always have been waiting. What are they going to tell us to do next? How do we have to operate now? How are we going to do the witnessing? Please tell us exactly how to do this. You know. And actually, while many of us are excited, we're like that 18-year-old kid that's so excited to be free and to do what they've always wanted to do. But at the same time missing Mom coming behind us and saying, don't worry, I packed your lunch. You know, okay, this is what you have to do after school. And that's how our relationship has been for many years. Where we lived this comfortable life. Where our bed was made when we came home. Where things were tidied up in our church. And now it's this exciting opportunity where we get to live out our dreams. Where we get to be what we've always wanted to be. But it's scary. But we need to have this faith, and that's what our true parents are asking us to do now. That's what God is asking us to do. And what a precious time this can be if we're bold enough to go out and take that opportunity. So I encourage you all this week to dwell on what God has called you to be. What is it that you've always wanted to do for God, but haven't been able to do yet? Because of your circumstances, or because of situations, because of the direction our church was going, or because you were scared. And it's okay to be scared. But I want to encourage you to think about how you can live boldly, how you can live that dream finally. How you can be like Mr. Bay yesterday, who lived his life to the fullest. And people remembered what a great life he had. You know what he shared? He shared with his daughter-in-law. He said, his daughter-in-law shared for him, she said, his favorite thing, the time he was most happy in his life, was when he came to church. So interesting. I don't know if I always feel like that. He said his most happy time was when he came to church. He loved people. Even as his grandson was sharing, he used to go to work all the time. And he saw his grandfather always come home and take all the money he received and put it in this coat. And he watched his grandfather over a few months. And he would check that money. And it always increased, and he was never spending the money. He thought, this is so weird. But he asked his grandfather, and he found out his grandfather wasn't doing it for the money, but he loved to meet people. And if he didn't have a job, he wouldn't get to meet people. So he went out and he worked, you know. So let's live those courageous lives, those lives to connect with other people. To have that boldness to do something new, to do something fresh. to take God's calling on our heart and live that out. And I know many of you have different visions of what God is calling you to be. We don't all have to do it. You can do it. And God believes in you. And God knows you can do it, and that's why He's placed it on your heart. So don't be afraid to take that. I know in this room we're full of amazing pioneers. And I, for one, am excited to see what God is going to do next. Brothers and sisters, please join me in prayer. Our beloved Heavenly Parent, we come to you this morning just so full of life. God, when we realize our vulnerabilities, when we can see where we really are, where we've been, where we're going, we see that the most alive we've ever felt is when we made ourselves vulnerable, when we let ourselves go into your midst, God. Even in those storms in our life when we didn't know what to do, when we could open our hearts and say, God, guide me. That's the time we felt that peace in our heart, that joy in our heart, because we knew we were where we belong, God. I pray that each one of us can reflect on our life, on the great things we've done and where we're at today, and be bold enough to think about where we could be. What is God calling me to today? Who could I be if I just step out in faith? If I live out that dream that's inside my heart? If I don't worry about my circumstances, or that I'm not smart enough, or I'm not rich enough, but we go out and we make it happen because you want it to happen, God. We want to have a faith that can look at these mountains and tell it to move. That I'm going to get there. That I'm going to follow that narrow path. I'm going to take that rope bridge and I'm going to go into your heart, God. And I pray you can encourage everyone here this morning that they can live out in a new faith, a new love for all mankind. That we can all know your deep love for us, God. If anybody here doesn't know you yet, has not experienced that yet, God, I pray that you can open their hearts now to receive that courage, to receive that strength. And that as a community, we can walk boldly into this new era, into this new age. God, we love you. And we want to be your instruments, your tools. Remove the fear from us. And let us stand boldly for your kingdom. God, we thank you. We offer this Sunday to you. In your holy name and in all our names. Achu. Let's take a few minutes, brothers and sisters, to pray, to offer our hearts to our Heavenly Parent.